On the 50th floor of this magnificent office, from where the entire city looked like a toy, everything was as perfect and flawless as always. Glistening glass, expensive furniture, and a powerful man whose single signature could change the fate of thousands. But today, this silence was broken by a voice that no one there expected. A little girl, on whose face were shadows of fear known only to one who had spent the night talking to walls. When she gathered her courage and looked into the eyes of the arrogant man sitting before her, it was as if time stood still. Her voice was trembling, but her words echoed in that room like an atomic bomb. "Sir, my mother didn't come home last night." That mother, who for years had come to this very office like a shadow, cleaned the floors, and was never even noticed by anyone. Why? Because her color was different from the color of these walls. She was just a sweeper, a name that was perhaps an insult for this powerful CEO even to utter. But the plea of this innocent girl drained the color from the face of this cold-hearted man. He did not know that the secret of this missing woman could drag his own chair and his own honor into the dust. What was the truth buried in the foundations of this towering building? Was this just an accident or an organized injustice? Today's story is not just the search for a missing mother, but rather the horrific tale of that social poison which we ignore even after seeing it. Get ready, because the truth that is about to come forward will shake you to the core. Elena's life was never easy. She was one of those people whom the world does not like to look at, but without whom the world comes to a halt. Every day before the sun rose, while the city's big names were still in a deep sleep, Elena would set off toward global tech towers riding her old bicycle. She was the chief cleaner of this skyscraper, but despite working here for 20 years, no one had ever bothered to know her name. She was only called that black woman, or the cleaner. Her only support was her son, Marcus, and her young daughter, Maya. Marcus was an intelligent young man who was studying at the university on a scholarship, and every single tear, every single wound of Elena's was only so that her children would not live the life she had inherited. They lived in a neighborhood of this merciless city, where the sirens of police cars took the place of lullabies, but in Elena's small home, the fragrance of love always remained. On the other hand was Mr. Harrison, the CEO of this company, a person for whom humans were merely numbers and statistics. To Harrison, color and race were only a yardstick to decide who would command and who would serve in slavery. He would often see Elena cleaning the floor and make a mark on the floor with his shoe, just to see if she would clean it again or not. For him, Elena had no status except for the dirt that she had to clean. The incident began on the day when the company's big annual deal was about to take place. Security in the building was tight and tension was at its peak. Elena was strictly instructed not to be seen in the corridors. But that same evening, Elena saw something that she should not have seen. She heard Mr. Harrison behind the closed door of his office talking to someone about something that was not related to the company's profit, but rather to wiping out the poor settlement where hundreds of families like Elena's resided. When she left after finishing work, there was a strange nervousness in her heart. She knew that her silence could save her, but her conscience was shaking her. That night, as she was passing through the dark alleys of the settlement, she felt that someone was following her. She turned around and saw only the headlights of a black car slowly moving toward her. She ran in fear, but she did not know that this fear was not just following her, but rather pushing her toward a trap from which there was no way back. The next morning, when Maya went into her mother's room, the bed was empty. On the floor lay only Elena's old purse, which contained pictures of Marcus and Maya. That night proved to be the last normal night of Elena's life, and now only a horrific question remained in this silent home. That morning was nothing less than doomsday for Marcus. When he saw that his mother's bed was empty and her phone was lying broken on the floor, the ground slipped from beneath his feet. Elena never went anywhere without telling him, especially at a time when Maya was alone at home. Marcus headed toward the police station, but when the officer sitting there saw Marcus's color and his appearance, instead of listening to his plea, he conversely showered him with a barrage of questions. "Perhaps she ran away somewhere, or maybe she has left you," the officer said mockingly. Marcus knew that this was not just a disappearance. It was the cold-heartedness of this system that was not ready to accept him as a human being. Overcome with disappointment, Marcus decided to find the clues himself. He reached the same corporate tower where his mother used to work. The security guards there stopped him from entering, pushed him, and called him a black dog. But in Marcus's eyes now there was no fear, only a longing for his mother. He secretly tried to reach the CCTV footage room from the back of the building. After many hours of struggle and taking risks, he found that 1 minute of footage that froze his blood. It was clear in the video that when Eleanor was leaving at night, 2 of Mr. Harrison's private bodyguards had forcibly put her into a black vehicle. Elena was resisting, her purse fell on the ground, and the car vanished into the darkness. Marcus understood that this was no coincidence. His mother had overheard something that could destroy Harrison's empire. That deal, that seizure of lands, everything that Elena had caught the scent of had now become a bloody game. Marcus ran straight toward Harrison's office. Dodging security, he reached the 50th floor. When he entered that luxurious office, there was an atmosphere of celebration. Harrison was clinking wine glasses with his wealthy friends. Upon seeing Marcus, a death-like silence spread across the room. Harrison looked at him with contempt and said, "How dare you come here? Security, throw this filth out!" But Marcus did not back down. He shouted, "Where is my mother?" "I know you had her picked up." A poisonous smile appeared on Harrison's face. He came close to him and said in a low voice, "People like you are only meant to be crushed under feet. Your mother made the mistake of hearing that which was beyond her status. Now she is where no one returns from." At that very moment, the sirens of police cars were heard from outside. Marcus felt that perhaps justice had arrived, but when the door opened, the police advanced toward Marcus. Harrison leveled a false accusation that Marcus had come to kill him. The policeman slammed Marcus to the ground, placed a boot on his neck, and handcuffed him. Harrison leaned near Marcus's ear and whispered, "By tomorrow, you too will disappear just like your mother, and this world will not even remember you." Marcus was being dragged outside, his face scraping against the floor, but his gaze suddenly fell upon a corner of the corridor where a small red object was shining. It was that small logbook of Elena's, which she always kept with her, and in which she wrote daily details. That book had been dropped by Harrison's men. Marcus used all his strength to stretch his hand toward that book, even though the policemen were brutalizing him. Will Marcus be able to reach that book? Does that small diary contain the evidence that can topple the throne of this powerful pharaoh? Or will Marcus and his mother be buried forever in the silence of this dark night? The real horrific truth was yet to be revealed. The police's grip on Marcus's arms was so tight that he felt his bones would break. He was being dragged toward the elevator, while Harrison stood at his office door, watching this spectacle with a triumphant smile. But at that very moment, Marcus did what no one expected. He gathered all his physical strength, jerked away from the police officer, and pounced on that red diary lying in the corner of the floor. He picked it up and screamed with all his might, "This is not just a diary! It contains every detail of that night. It contains the map of your destruction." The smile disappeared from Harrison's face. He signaled quickly, "Stop him! Snatch that book from him." The policemen and Harrison's guards fell upon Marcus all at once. He was kicked. His head was slammed against the floor. Blood began to come before his eyes, but he held that small diary to his chest as if it were his mother's last breath. In this very chaos, the pages of the diary opened, and a memory chip fell out from them and landed far away on the floor. The entire room became still. That chip was actually the recording of the hidden camera that Elena had hidden in the button of her work uniform. She knew that she was in danger. She knew that her color and her status would never let her prove the truth. Therefore, she had collected the evidence herself by putting her life at stake. Harrison lunged frantically toward that chip, but this time there was someone else to stop him. The head of security of the building, who until now was a silent spectator, perhaps his conscience had risen. He blocked Harrison's path and picked up that chip. "Sir, it is too late now," he said in a cold tone. Within a few moments, the video that Elena's camera had recorded began playing on the large screen of that luxurious office. The entire room shuddered. In the video, Harrison could be heard clearly as he was threatening Elena. "You are just a black cleaner. No one will believe your words. If you tell anyone about this land deal, I will erase you." After that came the scene where Elena was put into the car, and on Harrison's orders was taken to an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. At the end of the video, Elena's voice echoed, which was perhaps recorded in the shadow of death. "Marcus, Maya, if you are listening to this, then know that your mother never gave up hope. This fight is not just for me, but for the future of thousands of children like you." Harrison's face had turned pale. That police force, which until now was crushing Marcus, now backed away. The balance of power changed in the blink of an eye. Despite being soaked in blood, Marcus stood up. There were tears in his eyes, but he was not defeated. He went before Harrison and looked into his eyes, those eyes that were now trembling with fear. At that very moment, a message echoed on the police wireless. "We have found the warehouse. A woman has been found there. She is alive." A cry escaped Marcus's throat, in which the pain of years and the victory of today were both included. But was this just a victory? Or was it the beginning of that war, which was now about to spread throughout the city? Because as soon as this video was live-streamed, a crowd of thousands of people had begun to gather outside the building. Justice was no longer confined to just one office. It had taken the form of a revolution. That night, when the blue and red lights of the ambulance were flashing in the streets of the settlement, Marcus saw his mother being brought out of that warehouse. Elena was weak, her body shattered by marks of violence, but when her gaze fell upon her son, there was a spark in her eyes that no power in the world could extinguish. They embraced each other and wept, and those tears were not just of sorrow. They were of the victory that had emerged in the form of an inevitable truth. Mr. Harrison, who considered himself above the law, was led in handcuffs through the very corridor where he once walked with pride. The media, which was silent until yesterday, was now broadcasting the tales of his crimes. But this story was not just about the fall of a powerful man. It was about the exposure of a system that murders humanity on the basis of color and race. A few months passed. Elena no longer works in that tower, but now her identity is not just that of a cleaner. She and Marcus together founded an organization that becomes the voice of those people whom society ignores, considering them shadows. That diary and that memory chip are still kept safe with them as a reminder that justice is never served on a plate. It must be seized. But just think, what if Marcus had not found that diary? What if that security guard had not awakened his conscience? Then would Elena be among us today? The reality is that every story does not end like this. Even today, in some corner of the world, in some office corridor, by some roadside, some Elena is enduring injustice only because her color is not like those who make the decisions. Racial discrimination is not some old story. It is today's bitter reality. It is that poison which is silently hollowing out our roots. When we look at someone's race instead of their merit, when we see someone's color before hearing their plea, then we become part of that system which tried to erase Elena. This story is not just a video, but a mirror that asks us whether we will still remain silent. Will we still keep our eyes closed when injustice is happening before us? Remember, change does not come when a leader gives a speech. Change comes when an ordinary person, a Marcus, an Elena, decides to break the silence. Next time, when you see such a person whom society considers weak, remember that behind every face there is a story, and in every voice an empire is hidden. The question is not when the world will change. The question is whether you are ready to become a part of that change. Because truth can be suppressed, but it can never be erased.